What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo.
And I'm Steven Rambolo.
And we are pleased to be with you. It was a huge news week this week. A couple big things happened. Obviously, I'm sure you guys are aware, so we're going to cover it, break it down for the people, as Steven and I do. But before we get into all of that, just a little bit, what's going on? How's life, Steven? How's this past week been?
I mean, can't complain, I turned 24 on Monday, which is, been throwing me for an existential loop. But, I got a pretty great birthday present on Monday, which we're going to talk about.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, good for you.
Yeah, good for me. And a lot of other people. So other than that, I mean, just, summer's winding down here on the Jersey Shore, which is nice. We're gearing up for, the last big holiday weekend coming up in a few weekends. So, can't complain. Things are going to go flip the switch and go normal. How about you? You start something pretty crazy pretty soon.
Yeah, counting down the days for law school to start. I just finished up my last day for a little bit at work yesterday. And at the time of recording this, we're recording this Friday. It's going to air Saturday, obviously. But big day today. Jets preseason opener against the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm going with my brother, his fiance, and one of her friends. So it should be a great time. Can't wait. And that just means, Steven, you know what that means? It means my favorite season is coming up, and that's fall.
It's true.
Football season. It's baseball postseason. It's just the best time. The best time. Election season. So much. I love the fall. I'm not a pumpkin spice guy. I was talking to the girl at Wawa the other day. She was like, "Oh, don't worry, the pumpkin spice coffee's coming out." I said, No. That's not what I'm here for.
That has nothing to do with me.
Everybody knows the apple cinnamon is the superior fall flavor, and it just gets slept on year after year. That's all I'm saying. But
that's fair.
Yeah. Slept on every year.
I would be remiss. You made a great point. It's been hanging back here, since we've done this show.
That's right.
My little Aaron Rodgers jersey. Even though he's not playing tonight, we do have our opener tonight against the 49ers.
There you go. He's not even playing against the 49ers. That's crazy.
No. There's some vengeance in this game. They knocked us out last year.
That's right. So football's starting, baseball's winding down, the summer's winding down, but we're still here to break it down for you guys. And let's start. That's right. We're just getting ready to start. It's the midterms. Big time. So let's start with Steven. We're gonna cover the first story. I'm sure you guys are well aware of what happened with President Trump's house down at Mar-a-Largo this week, and Steven's going to break it down for you guys, and we're going to talk a little bit.
Yeah, this is huge. So this is when I was talking about a great birthday present on Monday. Man, boy, did Merrick Garland and DOJ and the FBI deliver tremendously.
But not President Joe Biden, because why would you let him know?
No. Listen. We'll unpack that. They gave me the best birthday present ever. A headline that I could only dream of. The former president's home raided by the FBI, and he got to go on his little Truth Social app afterwards and let the world know and throw a little bit of a tantrum about it. It was awesome. So Monday morning, I can't really recall what time the story broke. I want to say it was mid-afternoon when he had put that post up, right after it had happened. And he essentially, which I know you have it on your end, if you want to throw it up.
Yeah, just 1 second. Quick. If you want to talk about it, I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah. I don't remember too much contextually about, what he said, because I don't really pay attention to what he says. But the president made a post on his application, Truth Social, basically telling the world that he had been raided by the FBI, which was, I believe, the first that anybody had heard about it. And, as the week progressed, DOJ, Merrick Garland came out, made some statements, essentially confirmed what the president had said. But Monday, the news was a little bit...
Is the Truth Social post, so you guys can read that as Steven breaks it down a little bit more.
Perfect. So, on Monday, there wasn't much news about why the former president's home was raided, what they were searching for. It was just kind of like a gut punch to everybody, because this is the first time something like this has ever happened. An unprecedented act that the home of a former president is, and it was a no-knock warrant too, which is pretty interesting to me, because, pretty sure if you ask the man to comply, well, I don't know about that actually. He's not really one to comply. So I don't know. A no-knock warrant might have been necessary. Excuse me. So yeah, Monday morning, nobody really knows what's going on. As the week progresses, we find out from some reporting from the Wall Street Journal rather recently, within the past 48 hours, that what they were searching for were documents believed to be in his personal safe at Mar-a-Largo, dealing, and again, this is very open and loose language, with nuclear, like, information. And that's right. All that we have. Merrick Garland, in a statement yesterday, has basically kind of put all his cards on the table and said, listen, we made a motion, we want to unseal the warrant, and we want to unseal the itemized list of what was actually taken from the property. That itemized list is not going to be anything specific. It's not going to tell you, stack of papers this big about nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? So I think the strategy from the DOJ here is a little bit interesting because they normally don't comment on ongoing investigation. And let me back up a little bit. I think everything happening here is tremendously unusual because you have the home of a former president being raided. At the same time, mind you, that he's being deposed by the New York State Attorney General, and one of the House subcommittees just got judicial approval to get his tax returns. So this man is kind of under attack in a billion different directions. And now the DOJ and the Attorney General are coming out and they're making statements about this ongoing investigation, which we can get into whether or not that's a good thing or there's a utility there, which I think will be interesting to hear your opinion on. But moral of the story is, right now as it stands, Donald Trump seems willing to comply and seems like him and his attorneys are going to authorize the unsealing of this itemized list and this search warrant so the public can see what exactly the grounds for this search were. It was enough to convince a judge to sign off on this, and what was taken from this property. Because, again, I cannot drill home hard enough how unusual it is that the home of a former president is raided. It's not like they just kind of like knocked them or like, hey, we need to find some things. This was an FBI raid to search for government documents of the highest nature. Now, we can open and get into details and talk about, some people are alleging that the documents that he may or may not be in possession of, because this is also the most important thing here. Since we don't know what was taken, since we do not know what was there, it would be completely incorrect of us to project or imply one way or another that he's guilty. It's the presumption of innocence, right? That is how this country functions. That's how our legal system works. It's off the presumption of innocence. So to get on here and say he absolutely has these documents, they're absolutely, whatever, is wrong, and that's not what we're here to do. We're here to talk about the information we have available, do a little bit of speculation on tactics and strategy, and unpack this, because this is one of the biggest stories I'm going to imagine in the second half of this year, and something that we're going to hear about for a very, very long time, because this is a lengthy judicial process. So I want to know your thoughts, on, it being a no-knock warrant, so kind of insinuating that he probably wasn't able to comply. I was reading a little bit earlier, some reporting from MSNBC, that the DOJ had initially asked him, subpoenaed these documents, and he refused, and that's why they moved to get this warrant to go in and look for these documents. So I'm curious to see how you feel about, the actual style of acquiring these documents, and I'm curious to see just your overall thoughts on it, because
this is obviously
not a story any of us could have anticipated.
One. Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing. There's a couple things that I wanted to break down with this. First of all, this. So you mentioned the January 6th and there's a fake electors issue that's cropping up in Georgia that they say, the tax returns, right? All of that stuff is going on in the background. But from what I understand is that this pretty much seems pretty narrowly focused. Like, the DOJ is not talking with anybody else. Like, the FBI and the DOJ work together on this, and it's not like this is in line with January 6th, or this is in line with the tax investigation or anything else. This is like its own separate investigation into the president that's not in line with the rest of the things that are going on. Also, what I found interesting, what I saw was that, so obviously this has to do with what's called the Presidential Records Act, which basically was signed after, I think, the Nixon administration, and all of the confidential information that the president receives, or pretty much everything that the presidential receives, goes, once they leave office, directly to the National Archives for safekeeping so that the confidential things aren't, released to the public accidentally or otherwise. So what's so interesting about it, Stephen, though, is that during, I don't know if you read this when you were researching it, but during Trump's tenure in office, the Presidential Records Act was increased from a misdemeanor to a felony with mishandling classified documents because of Trump's whole lock her up with Hillary and her 33,000 emails that were classified on that personal server. So basically, him and his DOJ made the Presidential Records Act, as opposed to a misdemeanor, charge, to a felony charge. So it's interesting that now this is getting turned back on him in this way. Now, obviously, 10 to 15 boxes were taken, and I don't know what was in there, if it was that big. Like, it's the President of the United States. The President can classify or declassify anything he wants, and he could have, if he was taking this information with him. First of all, if it was like copies of the classified information, and the National Archives has a copy of it as well, like, this is a non-story then.
No, that's totally wrong.
No, it's not, because he can,
under
the President.
Under the Espionage Act, even if it's declassified, the removal of government documents is a crime punishable by 10 years.
No, but not with the former president of the United States.
Absolutely.
Well, because, that's a whole other thing. Is the president of the United States has there are different rules that apply to him, whether we like it or not, in our judicial system, right? Like, should the president be above the law? No.
You're dealing with sensitive government information, especially if it's nuclear information. You're dealing. I don't care if those documents are declassified and 25 years old. Nuclear information is a tremendous national security threat, and to have it out of the hands and protection of government facilities, especially a guy that we know at this club would take people to, and people attempt to become members there to get exclusive access to him.
Sure.
That's the problem.
I don't necessarily disagree that that's how maybe we should handle this situation, but to pretend like the President of the United States doesn't have different rules and regulations that surround them is also fallacy. Like, they do, whether we like it or not. Whether they should or not is a totally different conversation, right?
But he can't take documents.
But, well, we're going to find out, because he can take it as long as it's not willfully, like, knowingly breaking the law and taking them. That's the other thing. This standard is so hard to prove. Like, you have to prove that Donald Trump actively, knowingly said, I don't care that these records are confidential. I'm going to take them anyway. I'm going to hide them from the DOJ. I'm going to hide them from the National Archives. There has to be, like, concrete evidence that he did such. And here's the thing. I don't know. It seems like people on the political left like to play both sides of the fence when it comes to Donald Trump. He's either incompetent or he knows exactly what he's doing. And quite frankly, in my personal opinion, it's like he lucks into, I wouldn't say he lucks into a lot of the good things, but he sort of, a lot of the bad things he does, it's 9 times out of 10 has to deal with incompetence over anything else. Like, he just doesn't know what he's doing, type of thing. Yeah, I think
I don't buy it one bit.
I don't, but the other thing is, when it comes to the no-knock warrant, I think that's how you have to handle this situation personally. Like, we have the reports, whether believe them to be true or not, that he was like flushing documents down the toilet or whatever. So, like, I don't know. You have to issue a no-knock warrant there. It's just so difficult, because this is the former president of the United States. It's like, there is no way around this not looking like a political attack, right? Like, whether you agree with it or not.
But hold on, because I think that this is an interesting, because you mentioned earlier, the American public, as far as we're concerned, Joe Biden had no idea about this.
You're right, but it's not like Merrick Garland has any favors of the president, right? The former president.
No, that's all good and well. But the issue is, you have, Senator Marco Rubio, a high-profile sitting U.S. senator, who's getting on his Twitter and saying things like, using government power to persecute political opponents is something we've seen many times from third world Marxist dictatorships, but never before in America. If Joe Biden didn't know, because the allegation all over, conservative Twitter and these statements that they've been making on Fox News, and is that this is somehow always linked to Joe Biden trying to
I haven't.
eliminate.
Okay, I'm on conservative Twitter. No, everybody knows that Joe Biden doesn't. They understand that it's all Merrick Garland, and that doesn't make it any less political just because Joe Biden is too incompetent to be told anything, right? Like, well, yeah, I wouldn't tell him anything either. The man's a geriatric patient in the White House, right? So it's like, yeah, if I'm Merrick Garland, I would. I am also a political entity, right? So I don't think it matters whether Joe Biden knows it or not. The fact of the matter is, like, you don't have to think it's political. It is political in nature, dealing with a former president of the United States. That's why you have these different rules, so that, like, the whole point that the president can't be charged of a felony and things like that, while especially when it comes to dealing with things while they're in the White House, is to prevent political attacks. Like, it's to prevent somebody like the left feared with Donald Trump to go after your predecessor for whatever reasons that it is. And look, I'm not saying that is necessarily what this is from the DOJ, that they are just trying to get rid of Trump because it's Trump and they don't want him to win again. Although that is an allegation from the right. And I think it's like a fair enough, but I'm not going to speculate that that's true though.
I'll concede that if you're looking at the January 6th hearings, right, which are purely political hearings, there's really no legal processes there. It's all dealt within the political entity of the House of Representatives, right? You're talking about people like Nancy Pelosi who are getting on, the morning shows and are being political about this, and they're saying, we're going to get you, we're going to do this, whatever. If you want to call that a political hit job, fine. If you want to call that tarnishing, a potential opponent in the next general election, fine, because they're public, they're talking about it, they're making a spectacle of it. We had no idea this was happening, and that's the only reason that I would suggest that weaponizing this for your political ways, each or other way, whether it be people on the left saying this is great, we're going to get them, and people on the right saying this is a political hit job, they're targeting the president. Marco Rubio's saying that they're weaponizing the DOJ and that the FBI is, they have time to raid the former president, but people are bombing churches and pro-life protests. They can't do anything about that. It's like, well, listen, Marco Rubio, number one, you're not the director of the FBI. You're not pertinent to any FBI materials. How do you know what the FBI is investigating, right? To speculate on that in public and make those comparisons, to push a political agenda narrative is just wrong. The fact of the matter is, a Sunday night when we all went to bed, nobody knew this was happening except for the agents who were going on that raid, Merrick Garland, and whatever judge signed that warrant. Okay? Because this is not a spectacle. Very clearly, if the FBI and the Department of Justice find it appropriate to take this unprecedented step, there has to be something there. To push it as a nothing sandwich and say that it's a purely political hit piece, I think is really undermining the severity of the situation. Because truth be told, if these documents exist, and if they are in that safe and he is in possession of classified or unclassified documents that, he would have unilaterally unclassified for whatever reason, dealing with nuclear weapon systems, that deals with the biggest security threat and the biggest security net that this country possesses. I, as a citizen, regardless, if it could have been Barack Obama, it could have been George Bush, it could have been Donald Trump, it could have been anybody, I want to know why that now civilian has this information in their home. That's not okay.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that, Stephen. I think that to the point you made earlier, the question that you raised earlier, I think that Merrick Garland coming out and saying, "Hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to try and get the search warrant put out to the public, and what we find put out to the public so that people know." And I think that that's the right way to handle the situation. I do. I also do agree. Like, is it a problem that the former president has this classified information, especially if it does have to do with nuclear security? It is, like, and I'm not going to try and like tiptoe around it, right? But what you're seeing is these elected Republicans and some Democrats that are coming out and they're supporting President Trump, saying it's a political hit job, and I think that that's politically probably the right strategy for them, if we're being honest, right? If you're the political strategist, that's what you have to do. Even the person who's seemingly the biggest Trump competition in 2024 in Governor Ron DeSantis comes out and supports the former president during this. But it's interesting he does it on his personal like Ron DeSantis Twitter, not his governor of Florida Twitter. Yeah, that's the politically right thing for the Republicans, because if you look at public polling right now, Republicans, the electorate, I think it's somewhere above 75% think this is a political hit, right? I think it's over 50% of independents that think this is a political hit. And the only thing that's like this is really winning favors in droves is with Democratic voters. So if you're a Republican and a political strategist, yeah, you're going to support the president when it comes to this. You just have to do it. From the outside in, not any Republican strategist here, yeah, this is something that I want to know. No, I don't want a former president to have the classified information that can, like you said, that anybody who goes into the president's house might be able to gain access to, right? So I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of smoke, and we'll see how big the fire is. There's always seems to be a lot of smoke around Donald Trump, though, right? Constantly, ever since from day one, there's always a lot of smoke, but we've never gotten a fire yet. So I don't know if there's a fire hiding here or not, but if it's not, though, like let's say everything comes out and it really is kind of nothing, like it's not that big of a deal. What do you think? Do you think that if it's not a big, let me phrase this better. Do you think it's a bigger hurt for Trump if it is a big deal, or a bigger help for Trump if it's not a big deal? Does that make sense the way I phrase that?
Yes, I think it's a bigger hurt. I think that if the reality comes out, and again, I know that the FBI, knows things that we don't know, we'll never know, right? You're dealing with a very serious organization that possesses a lot of intelligence. These things don't happen for no reason, all right? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, government agencies and enforcement agencies haven't been politically weaponized in the past. Fine. I'm obviously going to play the hypothetical. If this is real, if this is what it says it is, he 100,000% deserves to be tried. And if he's in possession of these classified documents in his personal home and took them from the government, he needs to go to jail the same way that, on principle, an Edward Snowden needs to go to jail. Whistleblowing, and I mean, granted, whistleblowing is a whole different legal thing and whatever. To personally possess these documents for your own whatever reason, which to me is the scariest part. I want to know why he felt the need to take these documents if he has them. What reason? Right, but if you're not dealing in government business, if you're sitting in your Mar-a-Largo, feet up, kicking, playing golf, hanging out with your buddies, what do you need nuclear security documents sitting in your safe for? That's again, what Stephen, makes me worry.
And this is, I think, this is where I think it's important to note. This is only a criminal offense if it was selective in his material that he brought and willfully trying to circumvent, the beings of the National Archives. So that is the standard, right? Okay, so if he, which doesn't, it would not shock me, just kind of wrap everything up, take it, or bring it at all. That's not a crime, whether we like it or not.
All right, so it's not a crime for Donald Trump, but somebody somewhere in that office when he was president and he was leaving should have known what documents he is allowed and not allowed to take. There's a whole transition team that is developed to prevent things like this from happening. And so the fact that there are so many safeguards in place, A, to protect these documents to begin with, and B, in the transition process to make sure that what is taken is allowed to be taken and what is supposed to be kept is allowed to be kept. And the fact that they were in his safe, right? All of that, to me, if you're a skilled prosecutor, which I would argue, Merrick Garland has the potential to be, the implication and the line that you can draw there enough, even with what we have publicly available, the presumption of innocence seems to fade. You get on Twitter, not Twitter because he's banned, Truth Social, and you're making a stink about this, and it's political targeting, and I don't know. Innocent people's homes don't tend to get no-knock raided by the FBI. That's my opinion on this.
Right, and the only thing I would push back on is that we've had a lot of these conversations, similar conversations over the past like 5 years, and a lot of the times it's the same story, right? It's the Mueller is gonna get him, the Mueller doesn't get him. The Russia is a problem, but Russia actually wasn't a problem. The FBI said it was, but it actually wasn't. Like, so look, the story's going to develop. The story's going to keep unfolding. We'll see. I'm trying to be unbiased, like as unbiased as I possibly can and as fair as I can. I think that, like I said, Merrick Garland's handling the situation about as well as you can. It's a tricky, sticky situation. It's going to look political, whether you want it to or not. So just be as upfront and open as you possibly can, and we'll see what happens. And at the end of the day, the voters are going to probably have to decide this. I don't think the court system does.
Well, and that's the only thing that and this will be my last little bit on this, that worries me. And I mean, this is not going to be a surprise to you, but to listeners who, may be new to our content or whatever, I have a big issue with conflating legal issues with political issues, because I think that, I mean, it's just by design, right? The general population doesn't possess legal knowledge, doesn't, necessarily understand the process that it takes to, acquire evidence, like what AG Merrick Garland is releasing, the warrant and the itemized list. Somebody asked him if they wanted to, or if he had any interest in releasing there's a certain affidavit that they have to file that proves that they have probable cause. He was like, no, we're not going to tell you guys,
because that has to do with sources and stuff like that too.
Exactly, right? So this is a purely legal process, and there's things in here that the general public, laymen, just don't understand, don't get. And I don't think it helps to get on, be your Marco Rubio, I know Elizabeth Warren's been having a field day with this one, kind of get out and take this legal procedure that is supposed to enforce the laws of this country and persecute criminals who break the law, and conflate it with this political thing, because in my opinion, it deepens the divide. It drives us further apart. It makes you choose sides on something that should really be, as you're saying, you were mentioning it before, there's a standard. Did this person, meet the standard to be tried for this crime, or did they not? That's it at the end of the day. That's what this comes out to. And, I kind of hate that it's this political rigmarole, because now, again, you have this man who people are saying he's going to announce that he's going to run for president before midterms, which some Republicans are, ecstatic about. Some Republicans are, kind of shaking about, because it's going to throw a wrench into the whole thing, right? So to segue,
put me in that latter category for that one. Just invigorate the Democrat base more, why don't you?
Yeah, right.
Roe v. Wade didn't do it enough.
To make a segue, into our next bit, what we're going to talk about, we have midterms coming up, okay? Power in the House and Senate can flip very easily. The Democrats possess the
slimmest of majority, in the Senate.
Right? So you have Roe v. Wade is on the ballot. You have now the Trump raid is functionally on the ballot. Do people think that this guy is guilty? Do people think that the people who support him are supporting a guilty man? Everything coming out about January 6th. And now on top of that, Democrats are going to mark a win in their column by the passing of this bill, as soon as Biden decides to sign it. And then it's just another talking point for Republicans, as I'm picking on Marco Rubio so much, but as he called it, climate change garbage spending, which is, pretty staggering commentary in 2022 when climate change is a fact of life. It's going to heat up. Like, this midterm election is going to be tumultuous. I think there's going to be a lot of stone throwing, and it seems like nothing that's happening in the government is making it any better or making us want to unify anymore. It seems like we're just pulling each other apart.
Sure, and you went down the list for that the Democrats have to run on. It's not like the Republicans don't have anything to run on, right? You have the President of the United States, who's got the worst approval ratings in history, like worse, a lower floor than even Donald Trump had, and we thought that he had pretty low approval ratings. You have a Vice President who's got even lower approval ratings than the President. More Americans think that we're going down the wrong path than the right path. The economy's in basic shambles. I mean, we're in a recession, whether they want to admit it or not, right? So it's like there's a lot to run on both sides. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But moving on to the second story here, you have the Inflation Reduction Act, as coined by Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia. I'm going to go through it, and then we'll talk about how it really doesn't reduce inflation at all. It's just a fancy title. So it was a 51-50 party line vote that Vice President Kamala Harris broke the tie with. Basically, it's a giant spending and tax package. There's tax incentives for reducing carbon emissions. I think the numbers were that they're trying to get it between 31 and 44% of your 2005 rating by the year 2030, and then you're in line to get these cuts for these tax incentives. It'll allow Medicare to negotiate prices for prescription drugs, although not one thing that wasn't part of that deal was insulin, which is outrageously expensive, and the Republicans killed, right? Which it boggles my mind, because that's a lot of their voters are older and have to deal with having to buy insulin, which I don't know. Anyway, 15% of the corporate tax will be the minimum for corporate tax, and then there's going to be a 1% excise tax to reduce stock buybacks in trading from these companies. But what's interesting is that equity firms like BlackRock and basically these big conglomerates of investors that go out and they buy a lot of shares of publicly traded companies, they're not part of that corporate tax because of Christian Cinema down in Arizona, right? She basically fought for that to be taken out. So it's like these basically who you would describe as the greedy capitalists that try and buy everything up aren't put into this tax, increase in tax. Let's think. It will add 84,000 IRS workers to the IRS, everybody's favorite branch of government, as we know. And increase their budget in some ways that I think is good. Like, from what I understand, the IRS's computers are super outdated. They don't communicate with each other. They're like super bad and very difficult to navigate, which sure, you should update that. But then, like, we know, I think reports coming out from like 2019 area, it's not like they're only auditing rich people like they're claiming they will. They audit poor people just at this exact same rate as they audit wealthy people. So it's like you have more people in the IRS to audit more people. It's not like they're going to be auditing more rich people. Like, who do you think they're going to be auditing?
Yeah, I was going to say about this one, because again, this is another one. I'll keep picking on Lil Marco. He had a tweet that was like, well, first the FBI is going to raid the home of the president. Now Biden approves 81,000 IRS agents. What do you think they're going to be used for? You know what I think they're going to be used for, Marco Rubio? The government getting their money from whoever they can get it from. Because
right. Well, yeah.
It's if you think the IRS is going to target, rich people, you know what they're going to target? The money. So If you got money, the IRS is looking at you. They're watching you. To politicize that, to me, is such a stretch, because
I don't know. I mean, politicize it? No. But like to say that it's going to hurt the working class more is completely fair. Yeah.
Sure.
It's not everybody. Like right. Democrats and Republicans alike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've never once met somebody who's been like, yeah, no, I love the IRS.
Big IRS guy.
You know, we need more IRS agents.
Yes, give me more IRS. Except for, who's going to love this? Accountants. I would say don't go to TurboTax anymore. Go to a local accountant that knows what they're actually doing, because that's your best way to avoid getting audited by the IRS.
Yes, that's actually very, very true.
Yeah, so what it comes down to is this bill, as most Democrat bills are, raises taxes, does nothing in regards of inflation, even though they claim it does, right? Inflation's still over 8%. They're trying to claim that it's 0 or whatever the Biden administration's walking the line of. It's 8% and everybody knows it, right? Like it's just it gives tax incentives to the okay. Here's my little tiny soapbox for a brief second. You want to help with climate change and greenhouse, like remove greenhouse gases and carbon. I get it. Stop giving all of your money to the least efficient ways to get energy that we have. Solar and wind. Solar panels can help you with your house. It's not the future of greenhouse of green energy. It's just not. The most reliable forms of green energy we already know. We already do. It's nuclear. It's geothermal. It's hydro. It is not wind and solar. I don't understand why these like eco alarmists jump and cling on to wind and solar like they're going to blow away in the wind that's so powerful, right? It's just not the case. I don't understand. I don't get it. Make it make sense. Like put money into things that matter, that are actually going to do something. And then on top of it, you're doing this in a political climate that Russia is holding Europe by the throat hostage because they are the only ones that are producing the oil, and it's like Saudi Arabia is not going to do anymore. It's like, okay, I understand this is a problem and we need to go towards the direction of clean energy. I got it. Right now, like today, it seems like you are putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because Europe won't be what it is if we continue to allow Russia to hold them hostage on oil, and the United States and Canada, which has this vast amount of oil supply, just does everything in their power to run away from it. It's like, I'm with you. Put your money into better things and stop putting the cart before the horse. Because right now is not the time.
Well, so I would agree with that on principle. However, and we were talking about this right before we came on, anybody can do this. You go to congress.gov, and the resolution for this bill, it's called HR 5376. You go on this website, and it gives you all this awesome information about, granted, it's not really itemized in terms of numbers on the summary. You could read the full text of the bill. Not sure why you would want to do that. I think it's like 700 and something pages long.
Which is another problem. Which is a whole other problem in and of itself. But we've had our conversations about that. But there are some things you can go in and it's itemized, on certain subtitles. So, like just at a quick glance, one that I had seen that I was, pretty ecstatic about. Given my history and where I am. So this is Title 6 or Title 4, my bad. For the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. It's giving funding to NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it says right here, coastal communities that can prepare for extreme storms and other climate-changing conditions, NOAA facilities, weather researching, forecasting innovations, and money for a new Hurricane Hunter aircraft, which are things that, they are able to withstand the high winds and stuff and get in and take measurements and track hurricanes and all that. So what I do like about this bill is that it attacks the energy crisis in a multifaceted way. There's the Committee on Indian Affairs talks about giving money to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations for climate resilience programs. Like it does give money to, certain smaller entities to work on more focused climate relative, issues. So increasing storms for coastal communities. The ocean is, less than a quarter mile up the block. It's 2 blocks away. It's a 5-minute walk. That's something that I care about. Do I, right now want to worry about how much money is getting pumped into solar and wind and nuclear, right? Like that doesn't affect me in my immediate community. What affects me in my immediate community is having the infrastructure, and FEMA is another organization that got some money for this, protecting my home and my community, right? That's right. How climate change affects me. It's absolutely why you should split up big giant bills like this and vote on individual things. And it takes longer, absolutely. But it's like, sure, I think that if you take something like what you're describing, right, that's passed in this bill, out of this bill into an independent vote, you're going to get more Republicans to vote for it. Marco Rubio is going to vote for that bill. He lives in Miami, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah. It's, I mean, again, we're getting into the semantics of like bill writing and pushing these packages through and all the pork that's filled in them, whatever. But there is, points in here that I can say, sure, the lies, because it's what it is. It is a full-blown lie about us being in a recession, and that somehow this magic spending package is going to like fix this recession.
Pump more money into the economy during an inflationary spiral, and that's really going to help you out, right?
Yeah, right. That's baloney. That's not going to do anything good for anybody. And so you kind of have to. And I mean, listen, as a conservative, I know you understand this. You got to take the small wins, right? So it's like Joe Biden and the Democrats can stand up there and they'd be like, "We passed this bill. Look at us spending and climate and this and that," and whatever. That's fine. If you're a surface level political savvy enjoyer, whatever you want to call yourself, that's great. You can go to dinner on Sunday night and you can argue with your friends that you passed the bill and they didn't. If you care about the issues and you dig through this, you got to take the wins and you got to take the losses, right? So for me, the wins are the more nuanced climate-based solutions, dealing with things like infrastructure resources. They talk a lot about net carbon, or I think it's like net carbon zero building materials for new government projects. So we're trying to source more sustainable goods to, develop whatever may be buildings, and there's a lot of money that goes towards personal conservation. So if people private individuals own these large swaths of land, the government's basically incentivizing you not to develop on them and just kind of like, yo, you got it, keep it there. That's all we're asking. Like, right,
we're not going to take it from you, but just don't build.
Yeah, just don't build. Like, we got to do some more conservation. Things that are, over time going to prove to be more tactile and formative towards protecting our climate. Absolutely. That's what I'm happy to see incentivizing this bill. I could really care less, about how much money he's giving the Postal Service to get electric vehicles, because that's not really going to do anything except blow government money, into what's really a great PR stunt.
And it's so funny. It's so funny, though. Who's going to be doing these electric vehicles? I guarantee you one of the top bidders is going to be Elon Musk, who the Democrats hate, right? So it's just so ridiculous. And I think that your point is completely fair, right? It's the individual things. It's the smaller infrastructure packages. And I think that's where most people can get on board and like are cool with it. And I don't know, just a quick reminder of who the biggest conservationist in American history was, and that's a former Republican president, Teddy Roosevelt, and something that for some reason the Republicans ran away from. I mean, Richard Nixon made the EPA, right? Yeah. It's not like these guys, the Republican Party wasn't the party of conservation, and I think that if that what you should see from a younger crop of Republicans is this push back towards understanding how important the environment is, and it might be different from the Democratic solutions, like I laid out right earlier. I think the Democratic solutions are foolhardy and ridiculous, and they're just political ploys half of the time. Some things are okay, but half the time, not so much. But anyway, we're running out of time, Steve.
Yes. The last thing that I do want to say about this is, regardless of whatever the commentary is going to be on either side, I do think it is important to note that there is unity, very obviously, on the issue of climate in this bill, right? Because even though it was passed by a slim margin, whatever it may be, the fact that there is tactile government effort being put into these smaller climate initiatives, I think is something that everybody should be happy about. And anybody who's concerned with, government intervention in the climate change crisis should be happy about. And to just kind of bring it home for a minute, coastal infrastructure and the preservation of land and forests possessed by private individuals. You want to talk about New Jersey, like things that New Jersey should be happy about. We have one of the most, tumultuous coastlines on the East Coast. We get hammered by storms consistently. Coastal communities are always, flooded underwater. We have these ridiculous FEMA flood maps that insurance companies have been messing with for the past decade, which is a whole nother issue. And then on top of that, we have the largest swath of preserved, you know, forestry on the East Coast in the Pinelands, right? So these smaller incentives are things that New Jerseyans should be happy are going to get funded, because this is our local climate, our local community, and we make tons of money off these things. The shore is an attraction. We should preserve that. That brings money into these communities. So to keep it safe and to keep it, sort of fighting against the woes of climate change is going to be great for our local communities and our state community in the long term. So for New Jerseyans who are seeing this national bill, which is, 700 pages long and full of things that you don't want to read, just know that if you're concerned about the climate, which is what this bill is marketed as, it's a recession and climate bill, essentially, at least half of that they got right, and you should be happy about. The inflation thing, we spoke about that. But for New Jerseyans, to me, this is a win.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Those small things are wins. The bigger issues that go along with it, not so much. And again, my last point is that's why we should be splitting up these bills into smaller packages and bills, and that can be another story for another day. But the last story we're going to hit briefly, and I think it's an important one, especially for our generation, and that's the issue of anxiety. If you look at it, there's between the teenage years, I believe that the exact number is 12 to 18 in this study. So it's just children and teens with anxiety and depression in New Jersey. This is a study by the Anne E. Casey Foundation. Basically, anxiety and depression rates went up by 1.7% from 2019 to 2020. So that means there's 167,721 kids in the state of New Jersey who are basically talking about how they feel anxious and depressed in the state of the world right now in their own personal lives. And that is a problem with our generation, and something that I think Stephen and I can both talk a little bit about here. Maybe some ways that we get through it, and not. Obviously, with COVID happening, it pushed kids inside, it got them out of schools, and it made it even more difficult if you're struggling with these types of issues. I think that I know we both know people that struggle with anxiety and depression pretty heavily. Some of the most important people in our lives, struggle with this, are some of our best friends. So we see it, right? We understand this. And I think that an older generation doesn't necessarily understand these mental health issues like we do, because they didn't go through it. The world was just different, right? We have more technology, we have more and more people are being brought inside and away from people than ever. And I think that it's an important thing to talk about, and not even get into the science or anything like that. Just kind of like what are some ways that people can get out of this, maybe, or try to? Like, obviously going to a therapist helps, things like that. But I have some things, but I'll let you talk a little bit first.
Well, I think to your point also about the generational gap here, I know for a fact when I talk to my parents about it, the way that they talk about mental health was, we didn't even talk about that when I was growing up. It was, hey mom, my dad would be like, hey mom, I don't feel too, suck it up. Yeah. Like, that was the conversation about mental health. And I think we exist, and it's a privilege that we have these open conversations. And anytime this conversation comes up, and I know you mentioned therapy, and maybe it's just because I'm so drilled in the brain, being a New Jerseyan, I think about The Sopranos, right? And but truly, culturally, how crazy it was for HBO to put on national television every week the star of their biggest show ever, this macho man, sitting in a room with a therapist.
Well, that's what made it so brilliant, right?
But that's what I'm saying, right? It was an incredible commentary on even the strongest guy that even the macho man, the tough guy, struggles and needs to speak about it. And I would say, to give my opinion, and the best way to combat this is always have the conversation, whether it's with mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, your uncles, your aunts, your friends, your therapist, whoever it is. Talk about what's happening in your life with people that you trust, with people that you know are going to guide you in the right direction. Nobody ever should have to deal with and internalize these problems, these kinds of problems, alone, because that's exactly the trap of mental health, right? Is you're struggling and you're dealing with it, and it's all in your own head, and then you say, you know where I'm going to fix this? Right here in my own head, right? And that's the trap. To have the conversation, to be vocal, to be sort of, in a way, just fully true and honest about your experiences, is how you overcome this. On top of personal care, doing things that you want to do. Take a mental health day. For me, a mental health day is I'm waking up, I'm getting a coffee, I'm going to the gym, I'm sitting on the beach, and if I wasn't on a diet, I'm eating a hamburger. Right? That's a perfect mental health day. Turn the phone off, find a book that you want to read, go see an old friend, reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Just kind of turn off for a day. That, in my experiences, as somebody who sits in this Gen Z, and I went through COVID, and you and I lived together. We were doing everything under the sun, out and about all the time. Whether it be for radio, school, going to New York City, like taking all these trips, whatever. All of a sudden you're inside, you can't do anything you want to do. You got to sit in front of a computer for, 5 hours a day, and it drains you. It drains you. I get it. So that's my message on this. To anybody who struggles with these things, I understand you. I've been there, and there is a way out. There is a way to kind of talk about it and free yourself, from the shackles that your mind's put on you.
Sure, I completely agree, Stephen. And when I saw this story, I was on a walk, right? I was walking the dog, and I was checking my email as I was on the walk, and the story came up, and it talked about the number of New Jersey kids that deal with anxiety and depression. I was like, oh, that's a perfect thing for Stephen and I to talk about. So while I was on the walk, I was like, what is something, like, what are ways that when I might get in my head and have some problems, like, how do I get out of it? And how do I put myself in the best position to have the best mental health as I possibly can? So I came up with really six things that I think help me personally. And I don't know, myself, it might be because of my little bit more conservative temperament. I like rules. So these are just rules that I follow personally. And you can take them as rules. You could take them as suggestions, whatever you want.
Every rule is a suggestion to me.
Fair enough. The first one is try and wake up early, which is something that I struggle with, but I've been trying to do. And as I've woken up earlier, I have felt better, just in general, like about the day. And the first thing I do when I wake up is I make my bed. And these are not like new things. You're going to hear these on Instagram and your TikTok timeline, I'm sure. And it's like, try them out because they helped me and they could help you too. So it's like, wake up, make your bed, be in a space that is clean, right? Some people say I work better in clutter. It's like, no, you don't. Okay, I'm sorry, no, you don't. I said that, you don't. Okay, clean your room, make your bed, wake up early, have a cup of coffee, ease into your day. Wake up early enough that you can ease into your day, right? And that's something that I did wrong for a long time, is I would wake up the very last minute, and then it's like you're scrambling. You're like, oh, I hope I don't forget anything this morning. So it's like, wake up early enough that you don't have that anxiety as soon as you open your eyes, okay? The next thing, and this is something that I know Stephen will definitely agree with, is do something physically demanding. For me, it's going on a walk every day, at least a half an hour, at least a mile. I have a weighted backpack. I either take the dog for a walk, I go by myself, I listen to music or a podcast, and it just gets me out of whatever I was thinking about. For Steven, he goes to the gym, he lifts weights, he does, he's a bodybuilder, right? So he has that outlet. Mine is a little bit different, but at the end of the day, it's doing something that you need to get your body involved. You can't just sit behind a computer screen all day, right? My second thing is do something that's intellectually demanding or stimulating. Like what Stephen said, read a book. Go out of your way to find something that you don't think about, you don't agree with, and don't just read it, be like, oh, this is stupid garbage. Like, pretend like that thing has something to offer you, because it does, right? Maybe you learn something. Maybe you learn an argument to help you by reading somebody else's arguments against you, right? So do something that's intellectually stimulating and challenging. Number 3, so this kind of goes along, go outside every day. It doesn't matter the weather. If it's raining, let the rain hit you, okay? Let the snow hit you. Go outside for a little bit every day.
Just a tiny note on that. Exposure to sunlight, vitamin D deficiency is like an epidemic in this country.
Absolutely. People and there's a problem with COVID.
Yes, it's a tremendous problem with COVID. So, like, biometrically speaking, all of the things you're talking about have like strong ties to like our body's biochemistry and like proper function of the body. Not going to get into it, but exposure to sunlight is like the most important thing, because there's a feedback loop with dopamine in your brain. I just learned this recently. That's why I'm excited to talk about this. Where exposure to sunlight is basically like it hits the back of your eyes and it's like, it's go time, wake up, and it just spikes your dopamine early in the morning, and everybody possesses the chemical testosterone. There's a feedback loop between those two chemicals. So if your dopamine's spiking, your testosterone is going to spike also, and vice versa. And testosterone is a chemical that makes hard work feel rewarding. So exactly what you do in the morning, you wake up, you're in the sun, you're walking, you're doing something difficult, you're physical, you're moving, your joints are moving, your fluids are moving, like everything is going, and your body's like, yeah, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you're constantly rewarding yourself, and it's going to perk your mood up, and it's going to get you ready and primed to be highly functional throughout the rest of the day. So like, aside from personal experience, just biomechanically speaking, everything that you're saying is like proven to function to serve the purpose of like a better mental state. But exposure to sunlight is the most important thing.
Yeah. And the last 2 things, and they kind of go hand in hand. Number 1, speak to somebody new every day. Go to Wawa, go to a local coffee shop, go to wherever, and just talk to the cashier. How are you? You doing well today? You know, basic conversation. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to, change somebody's life, but talk to somebody different that you don't talk to every day. And ask them how their day is. They'll ask you how your day is. Brief conversation. Just try it. It might be cause anxiety to talk to new people. The cashier is there to serve you. Ask them how their day is. They'll be like, and then that'll be the conversation. And the last thing, and with each new person you talk to, it gets easier to talk to new people. The last thing is going along the lines of what Steven said. Know who your friends are, right? And that's not just like, yeah, okay, I mean, I know the people that I like to do things with. No, know who your friends are. Okay, I'm personally very lucky. Steven is my great friend, right? I know that if there's anything good or bad that's going on in my life, I can text, call, whatever, Steven, and he'll celebrate with me if it's good, and he'll help me through it if it's bad. Know those people in your life and talk to them. Try and talk to them every day. You don't have to, but try to, right? And if something bad's going on, talk to your friend. If something good is going on, say, hey, I woke up early today and I had a really productive day and I'm proud of myself. Text your friends, text your parents, text anybody that you know will be supportive of you. Be like, hey, this is what I did today. And you'll know that they're a good friend is if they turn around and be like, hey, good work. I'm proud of you. Keep it up, right? That's it. For me, that's what keeps my mental health, functioning properly and well. Not properly in a, you know what I mean? Like well, and I feel good most days. It's doing those things, and I don't think they're that hard. And I think that it could be hard if you're struggling, but if you try your best to break out of that funk, I think that those are good ways. Those are good starting places to do that.
I think my final piece on this, before I know we are like tremendously over, is the concept of applied consistency, right? So mental health is a project that you work on all day, every day. and small wins, like what AJ is saying, these little things throughout the day. You could chalk 5 wins in your day, and you won that day. And you do 5 more the next day, and you win 2 days in a row. You see how it works? It's 5 small things every day to a big win, and at the end of the week, you count all the big wins. Then at the end of the month, you count all the weeks that you won. And it's applied consistency over time to get yourself any goal, whether that it be personal, financial, professional. For me, like in terms of gym goals, like whatever it may be, applied consistency over time is the best and most proven path to success and defeating whatever stands in front of you. So to anybody out there, our age, older than us, younger than us, because this is not a generational issue that struggles with these things, be consistent, be certain in yourself, and like AJ said, find those things for you every day that just make the challenges a little bit easier and to feel a little more conquerable, because over time, as you do it, you're going to be able to look back and say, man, it sucked for those few weeks, it sucked for those few days, but I remember when I started taking the walks. I remember when I started texting AJ every day. Look where I am now. And,
right.
That progress is as rewarding as anything else in your life. So,
yeah, the last thought that I have is, I forget if it was a tweet or a TikTok, some sort of post on social media. All it said was, I started taking walks every day for my mental health, and now it sucks because I have to walk every day or else I don't have any mental health. And it's like, it's so true, because when on days that I don't go outside and at least go on a 10-minute walk with the dog, I just I feel like a lousy loser. So you don't want to do that. Anyway, that was another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. We'll see you next week. I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Steven Rambolo.
Have a good one, everybody.